Hello everybody and welcome back to DTDcember, a series in which I'll be counting down my top 12 GTA villains of all time. If you want more info on this whole thing, feel free to check out my first video in this series where I explain the rules of my list. Or if you haven't seen my previous DTDcember videos and want to avoid spoilers, check out this playlist to watch every prior entry up to this point. Today, I'll be talking about my number 2 entry into this list, Jerry Martinez from Vice City Stories. We're introduced to Martinez in the opening cutscene of the game, and despite being our sergeant, he appears to be rather laid back and maybe a bit disrespectful. And while he puts on this nice guy facade as he gets to know our protagonist a little bit and gives him some advice on how to solve his problems, something about him feels a bit shady. Regardless, he asks us to do him a favor and pick up a package, and Vic reluctantly agrees to do it. Then on the way back to the base, Martinez asks us to hold on to the package we retrieved for him in our barracks, which our protagonist is still reluctant to do, but against his better judgment, he follows his sergeant's orders and stashes the drugs. In the next mission, Martinez convinces our skeptical protagonist to do him another favor, using the idea of earning money to help his sick brother against him. Then in our third mission for him, he asks us to bring him a prostitute, after which Vic flat out tells him that he doesn't trust him, at which Martinez initially appears offended, only to go back to his usual laid-back dickhead self immediately after. Regardless of this, we do as he asks and we bring the hooker back to the base, only to be confronted by another sergeant over the drugs he found under Vic's bed. When he realizes that we're with a prostitute as well, the sergeant kicks us out of the army, and it's all thanks to Martinez. While working for Martinez though, we meet Phil Cassidy, and after we're dishonorably discharged, Phil sets us up with a place to stay and offers us some work to help us get back on our feet. But the only problem is, Phil works for Martinez, so in order to get by, Vic is essentially still stuck working for the man who got him kicked out of the army, and I'm sure we can all guess how well that goes. Before the inevitable happens though, we get the chance to see another side of Martinez's character in his first interaction with Vic since we became a civilian. While in our prior encounters with him, Martinez came off as a doofus degenerate. When Vic begins to threaten him, he suddenly becomes serious as he explains his reasoning for throwing us under the bus. Additionally, as if his actions weren't already bad enough, he pulls no punches in this interaction as he makes sure to mock Vic's sick brother. Meanwhile, in our next mission for Phil, we witness the tension between him and Martinez play out after he apparently told our antagonist that he didn't trust him. Sound familiar? Well, just like he did with Vic, Martinez immediately betrays Phil after the show of distrust, and he tries to have us both killed. After we survive the betrayal, Martinez threatens Vic to leave town before he kills us, and this is the last that we hear from him for a while. As we remain off of Martinez's radar, Vic gets to work at building up his crime family and is soon joined by his brother Lance, who tells him about a large shipment of cocaine that they can steal. At first, Vic is against the idea of taking the shipment, since he's been very adamant up until this point in the story that he has no desire to work with drugs. But when Lance tells him that the coke belongs to Jerry Martinez, Vic reconsiders things and ultimately decides to steal the drugs to get back at his former commanding officer. He realizes immediately afterwards, however, that he should have stuck to his principles when he calls Martinez to brag about screwing him over, only for our former sergeant to inform us that the drugs belong to the most powerful drug empire in Vice City, the Mendez cartel, and that both he and Vic are now fucked. However, Martinez has a backup plan to rat on everybody and live a new life in witness protection, which leads to his physical exit for the next portion of the game. But even while he's off screen, Martinez's presence is still very much felt. Towards the end of the game, our antagonist sends his men to kidnap Vic's love interest, Louise, and almost had her killed before we show up and bring her to the hospital to save her life. Then several missions later, when she's about to get out of the hospital, Martinez threatens to go pay her a visit, forcing Vic to rush over there to save her again while Lance takes care of a deal. However, it turns out this is all just a ploy to separate the Vance brothers, and it nearly results in Lance's death until we arrive just in time to rescue him. While Martinez is unsuccessful in eliminating Vic's allies, it's around this time that Louise is killed by the Mendezes, which leads us into our finale. As Vic goes on his rampage through Diego Mendez's hideout, Martinez catches wind of the action and makes his arrival to put an end to both of the parties that have caused him so much trouble. Eventually, Vic chases Diego up to the rooftop, only to be stopped and held at gunpoint by Martinez, who takes the opportunity to taunt and mock us one last time before killing us. However, our encounter with him is interrupted when Diego Mendez makes his presence known, resulting in a final showdown between the three in which we kill both of our antagonists once and for all. Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories is a game with a criminally underrated story, as it gave us not one, not two, but 3 of the greatest villains in GTA history. But while the Mendez brothers posed a great threat to our protagonists in their own right, I think Jerry Martinez ultimately takes the cake over them as the superior villain for a variety of reasons. While the Mendezes are undoubtedly the more powerful party out of the two, which is evident based on Martinez's fear of them earlier in the story, Jerry's strength comes from his ability to counter nearly any situation he finds himself in and leverage a way out. In other words, Jerry knows how to survive. When his place in the military was jeopardized at the start of the game, he had already pinned the evidence onto Vic and got himself out of trouble. And when Vic was put into hot water with the Mendezes, he found himself an out and took it by turning states. Additionally, while he was ultimately unsuccessful, Martinez showed off a bit more of his strategic side when he attempted to kill Lance by separating him from our protagonist. He may not have the brute force the Mendezes do, but as long as he's alive, he is undoubtedly a danger to all of his enemies and their families. families. Lastly, when all else failed, Martinez showed until the very end that he wasn't afraid of Vic and truly believed he could beat him. Whereas Diego Mendes was caught running away from Vic, Martinez actively flew to where he knew Vic was to try and finish him off, which, in spite of his despicability, you've got to respect his balls. For all of those reasons, Sergeant Jerry Martinez will earn the number 2 spot on this list of the greatest GTA villains of all time. But do you agree? Do you think he should have this spot, or do you feel that he should have been ranked higher or lower? And what do you think of DTDcember so far? Let me know down below, and if you've enjoyed the series so far, then feel free to leave a like on this video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already so that you'll be notified on Christmas when I return with the number 1 entry for this list. Until then, have a blessed couple of days, and I'll see you one last time very soon. This is your boy Doug the Dog 6, and I am signing off.